Tonight, you'll probably do what you've done thousands of times before. You'll turn on a light, pick up your phone, and stay awake long after the sun disappears. It feels completely normal. But almost everything about your nights would have been impossible for nearly every human who ever lived. For almost 300,000 years, darkness wasn't an inconvenience. It was a completely different world. A world where every sunset forced a choice. Stay alive or become someone else's dinner. If you wanted to survive the night, you couldn't rely on electricity. You couldn't rely on locked doors. You couldn't even rely on your own eyes. Everything depended on a single discovery. One discovery that quietly changed the future of our species forever. And it all started with fire. Then researchers noticed something fascinating. People who spent just 7 days away from artificial light started falling asleep much earlier, without forcing themselves. No sleeping pills, no strict bedtime. Their body simply knew when it was time to sleep. But this wasn't a new discovery. In fact, people had been writing about this phenomenon for centuries. As far back as the 16th century, historical records described how people naturally became sleepy soon after darkness arrived. By the 17th century, the pattern was impossible to ignore. Across different countries and cultures, people consistently reported the same unusual habit. They would sleep for about 4 hours, wake up naturally in the middle of the night, stay awake for an hour or two, and then fall asleep again until sunrise. This wasn't considered insomnia. It was completely normal. In fact, historians estimate that nearly 81% of recorded sleep accounts from that time followed this exact pattern. So here's the real question. If humans followed this rhythm for thousands of years, and why do almost none of us experience it today? The answer lies in something our brains have been shaped by for over 300,000 years, and something we've changed in less than 150. To understand it, we first need to talk about those mysterious 4 hours. For almost all of human history, nights looked like this, but once the sun disappeared, the world became dark, and so did human activity. There were candles, oil lamps, and campfires, but none of them could truly turn night into day. Darkness wasn't just a part of life, it was a limit. Then everything changed. Today, the average person spends 7 to 8 hours every evening surrounded by artificial light, street lights, bedroom lights, phones, TVs, computers. For the first time in human history, our brains are exposed to daylight long after the sun has disappeared. And that's where something strange begins. Instead of becoming sleepy, many people actually feel more awake as the night goes on, almost as if their brain has switched into an entirely different mode. But here's the confusing part. Not everyone experiences this. Some people fall asleep within minutes, while others lie awake for hours, even when they're completely exhausted. So what's actually happening inside the brain? To answer that, we have to go back long before electricity ever existed. But something strange slowly disappeared. People stopped waking up naturally in the middle of the night and began expecting one long, uninterrupted sleep instead. Our ancestors never obsessed over the clock. When they woke up, they didn't panic. They used those quiet hours to think, pray, plan tomorrow, write, or simply reflect in silence. Some even believed the peaceful nighttime hours made it easier to receive inspiration. Many famous ideas, discoveries, and creative breakthroughs were born during these calm moments. Instead of fighting their natural rhythm, they worked with it. For centuries, this way of sleeping remained completely normal. Then, everything changed. In 1879, one invention quietly rewrote humanity's relationship with the night forever. Old sleep habits disappeared, new expectations replaced them, and within just a few generations, people began believing there was only one correct way to sleep. That single invention would eventually shape modern medicine, modern science, and even how we judge ourselves when we wake up at 2 a.m. But what exactly happened? To answer that, we need to meet the invention that changed human sleep forever. But what if the real problem isn't waking up in the middle of the night? The, but the expectation that you should sleep 8 uninterrupted hours in the first place. For thousands of years, people didn't. Historical records from Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Middle East all describe a pattern known today as segmented sleep. Instead of one long block of sleep, people naturally slept in 2 separate phases. They would fall asleep shortly after sunset, sleep for around 4 hours, wake up for a quiet period lasting anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours, and then peacefully return for their second sleep until sunrise. This wasn't considered strange. It was completely normal. During that quiet period, people often prayed, read by candlelight, talked with family, reflected on their dreams, or simply sat in silence before returning to bed. Modern science is beginning to suggest that this wasn't a cultural accident. It may have been part of our biology all along. When researchers removed artificial lighting and exposed volunteers only to natural daylight and darkness, something remarkable happened. After several weeks, many participants spontaneously began sleeping in 2 distinct phases, almost identical to the pattern our ancestors followed for centuries. This suggests that our brains may still remember an ancient rhythm, one that modern life has almost completely erased. Yet every night, millions of people wake up after 4 or 5 hours, panic, check the time, and convince themselves that something is wrong. Ironically, that panic may be the very thing preventing them from falling asleep again, because the body isn't necessarily broken. It may simply be following a rhythm that civilization taught us to ignore.